Welcome, guys. This is another special episode with a super duper special guest. We're super excited to have John on the podcast with us. We are a big fan, okay? Listen, the YouTube channel, the
The
brand,
TikToks,
the
the
TikTok,
brand.
like all the things, the code. We have a lot to get into. Yeah, we're big fans. We're big
For
fans.
sure.
Yeah, but we want to let you introduce yourself too, though, just
Thank
like
you.
for the people that may not know you.
Yeah.
So you can do so.
Um, my name is Jonathan Diggs. I go by John the Saint on social media. As they mentioned, I do a lot of different things, but ultimately, I just like to say I'm a creative. I feel like that's where God's gifted me. So I do TikTok, YouTube. I'll probably start on Instagram soon. Have a clothing brand. So those are just a couple of things that I do.
Yes.
But
And he
yeah,
has his clothing, like his own work on him right now. Like this is his work. Look how fire it is.
I love it.
Listen, that's super dope.
thank
That's
you.
super
I
dope.
appreciate it.
So, like, what led you to start sharing your faith on social media? Because I know it's not easy, and I know it takes like a lot of courage. So, like, what kind of led you to start?
I would say a similar thing to you, where it was kind of one of those things where people around me knew that I was a believer, but at the same time, they also didn't know. So, religiously in church every Sunday, and then the old church I went to had church on Thursdays. So, I was in church like 2 to 3 times a week, every week without fail, but living more so like a lukewarm Christian lifestyle. So, I had a TikTok account actually before the one that I have now. I had like 80,000 followers, and my mom, she didn't know about what I did because I didn't tell my mom. And she's like been the main spiritual mentor in my life. And when she found out about it, she was like, "What are we doing?" Like we had a real heart to heart conversation about it, just because I was promoting vanity, I was promoting self, and you couldn't tell I was a believer. And I took a long time to reflect. And so I wasn't going to do social media for a good bit. And then I went to an FCA camp, which is Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And when I was there, I was able to minister and pour into young adults. It was about a group of like 10 guys in high school. And I saw the way that they gravitated towards me. I saw the way that they liked the way that I carried myself, the way that I dressed. And so I felt like from that moment on, I was like, why can't I do this on TikTok? I felt like there was a call there for God to start a social media platform in a similar way, to be more open and vocal about my faith. And from there, a lot of traction just went crazy. So I knew that God had his hand over what I was doing, and I was really thankful. But that's how I really got into social media for
Gotcha.
real.
Wow,
That is
that's
super
dope.
dope. Like,
Like on your TikTok, you do share a lot of Christian rap artists and R&B singers. So, how did you like find these artists? Because I know for me, for a long time, it was just Lacrae, and that was it. Okay, like I didn't even know they existed until I found
Right.
your TikTok, and you would like post your playlist, and I'm like, where have these people been?
hmm So I think that with things like TikTok, it has really opened up the ability to discover artists. And so for a long time, I would only listen to like the mainstream Reach Records artists like Lacrae Tatashi. So I grew up on
Hmm.
Christian hip hop. But because of that, like my algorithm started sending me a bunch of people. Like I started seeing Caleb Gordon before he had his hair, and I started seeing people like Lazarus that were blowing up. And I'm like, okay, cool. So like there is a space. But I will mention, I think Simply Ollie, who is just now dropping music again, was the first Christian artist that really put me onto that underground sound. And from there, I reached out to him. He put me on a lot more artists. And from there, I just realized it was not necessarily a matter of the talent being there, but if you can
Mm.
find it. Because, like, now we're in a space where not only do you have to be a talented artist, but you have to market yourself well or you'll never be found. And so I just networked with a bunch of artists that were struggling with their marketing. I was like, hey, I can put you on my playlist, and I can use your song in a video. Is that cool? They'd be like, sure. And then the video would do well. So it was like a mutually beneficial thing. I was able to find more artists, and they were able to get exposure. So that's kind of how
That
that
is
worked
super
out.
dope.
yeah.
So, being that you said you grew up on like listening to Christian rap, did you ever find yourself like kind of
hmm
listening to more of the secular music that we would call it? Definitely.
Definitely. Um, I would say in high school, because you have that really strong pool of like following your friends rather than what you were taught when you were raised. I was in spaces where I would hear songs that I'm like, oh, this hard, and then I'll go home and listen to it, and I would do my research and everything like that. So for a couple of years, I was definitely listening to secular music, but I never let go of Christian rap either. It was just more so I was doing a balance of both, and so I think that it gave me an ear to recognize what the standard was, because like when it comes to Christian music, there's a lower bar for quality, I feel like, personally. And so whenever you want to show your friends who are secular, like, oh, this song hard, they be like, bro, this sounds nothing like what I'm listening
Yeah.
to. So like that's why I take pride in my playlist. I really have a high standard, a high quality, and so a lot of Christian artists will reach out to me like, "Hey, what do you think of my song? What do you think of X, Y, and Z?" And it's like, I don't want to stop your shine. I don't want you to, stop your grind. But this is not the quality standard that other people are listening to, and I personally wouldn't want to listen to. So like, I would always word it in a way where I'm like encouraging them to like, hey, maybe you need to spend more money on equipment. Maybe you need to spend more time writing lyrics, developing different topics to talk about. But it was never in a way to like
Mm,
bash them. I'm just understanding that there's a standard that they're not exactly
gotcha.
meeting.
And recently, I had a grad photo shoot, and we were like playing Christian. I think we played Lazarus,
Yes,
and he
I
was
love
like,
Lazarus.
"Wait," he was like, "Is this a
Yeah.
Christian artist?" I was like, "Yeah, you like it?" So it's like I understand what you mean. It's like
Right.
that quality, and I feel like it's like this negative, almost like stigma on Christian rap. It's like that's corny, that's not it. Like, nah. But there
Hmm.
are like some really dope creative artists out there, and
Yes.
I just love how God is using them in that way. Because for so long, it's just like, oh, that's
Most definitely.
corny. Oh, like it's like. But now it's this major shift that's happening, and I love it. Like my whole playlist is just Christian rap.
Yes. And well, Taja actually kind of, I think, because like our spiritual walks like kind of happen at different times. So
Oh
like Taja
yeah,
will be in the car and she'll be playing like
Hmm.
who is like your
Caleb.
favorite? Yeah, she'll be playing like I'm like, wait, who is this guy that you keep playing? Like who is he? But like I was still kind of listening to like
Yeah.
a lot of R&B. Okay, so I'm like I need to kind of like tap
Right.
in and see who these people are because
Mhm.
as we go like as we grow spiritually I think our like desire changes, like what we want to listen to, like what we're feeding ourselves, is it starts
Definitely.
to change. And so it's like as
Hmm.
I was growing, I'm like, wait, I should not be listening to this anymore. Like this is out of line with what the Bible says, with how I'm feeling. Like,
Right.
no. And so like she really helped me kind of navigate like, okay, when am I actually listening to? So like I
Okay.
guess for you, how would you like kind of motivate somebody to start listening to more Christian music who like is trying to stop listening to so much secular music.
Okay. So one thing that I will be pretty transparent about is like I see a lot of Christians tell you to stop listening to the secular music and then they start demonizing you if you
Mhm.
do. I'm a firm believer that like secular music is not going to send you to hell. So I'll start off with that. But what I will say is that there's two major things that you have to be conscious of that happens when you listen to secular music. It feeds into your soul more than anything. So it sticks. The lyrics that you're hearing is going to stick to your soul. It's going to keep you in a carnal space if you're listening to secular music. So basically, it's just going to keep you thinking about whatever they're talking about. And so it's crazy how I remember listening to songs when I was a kid, when I was in middle school, and I'm able to recite all of
Mhm.
these lyrics. And then I'm listening to these songs when I'm a child, but I'm still able to when I'm 22. I'm like, what were they actually saying? And they're talking about sexual things, they're talking about murder, they're talking about things that are not edifying God. So it's like whenever you constantly listen to that, that's the mind state that you're going to have. Now you can still be a believer, but it's not going to be something that's going to be producing the fruit of Christ. So it's like you're an ineffective Christian. And then the next thing I would say is like the word choice, the word agreement that you're stepping into whenever you listen to secular music and you actually quote back those lyrics. If you struggle with depression, for example, and you're always listening to somebody like a Billie Eilish or a Rod Wave, and they're always talking about how sad they are, it's because you're coming into agreement. So encourage people, if you really want to grow in your walk with Christ, then cut out the secular music. You'll start noticing that you don't struggle with lust as much if you're not listening to as much secular R&B. You'll start noticing that your depression, the things that you might have struggled with, it's not going to be at the same level when you start cutting out music because you're aligning your thought process and your spirit with Christ with the music that you listen to. Music just has a crazy effect of where it affects the soul in ways that other things don't. So,
That's so true. Yeah. So with the cove, can you kind of like explain more about like that whole thing? Because I feel like that kind of plays a part into this conversation as well. So yeah.
mhm. So I think that a lot of people hear Christian nightclub and they get the complete wrong image because of the history that a nightclub has. Like words carry weight, and we're aware of that. And we knew that by calling it a nightclub, it accurately describes what we're doing, but religious people are also going to take issue with it. And so it's a what's the word, like shock
Hmm.
value, So like people see this and they get a negative reaction. But one thing that we told ourselves is we know that we're going to be honoring God in everything that we do. So yes, it's a nightclub, but that's not what the cove represents. The cove is short for covenant, although they don't sound the same phonetically, but that's where it comes from. So we made a covenant with God in that when we start this Christian nightclub, our goal is to promote community more than anything. And so I've heard a lot of people talk about it. There's like, oh, you can go to church, you can go to small groups. That's a broad overstatement for a lot of people. I know that the church that I went to growing up with didn't have very many youth. They didn't have people my age, or they didn't have small groups outside of going to church. So we're just cultivating a space of community. And in that covenant, we said that we're going to always play Christian music. We're always going to make sure that we curate a space that is safe. So the three rules of the cove are no smoking, no drinking, no twerking. So that kind of just handles the whole, oh, is there going to be alcohol? No, there's not going to be any of that. There's going to be twerking or like lustful dancing. No, we're managing what we can control from the front. So that way, like, nothing can be said that's bad from inside of the cove. If you see like the hate that's coming from social media, that's from people who have never stepped foot in a space like this. So the cove is basically just a place where we create community, and we want people to meet other believers who are having fun, who enjoy the same types of music that we enjoy, who want to dance, but not have any of the sinful negative associations tied with a traditional nightclub. So
Gotcha. That's super dope. We have to
Fly out to come to the goal. I know we have to fly out because we want to come to the New Year's
where you guys located?
night. We want to come to that one,
Mm-hmm.
so we're trying to see how it's
Where you guys
Louisiana.
located?
Yeah.
Okay,
Louisiana.
that's kind of
Yeah.
fun. Lucky.
So
I'm
yeah,
not
we
gonna lie.
can't drive.
But
For
wait, you went to
sure.
Tennessee State, right? Gotcha. So I
Mm-hmm.
actually go to Southern University. It's a HBCU out here. So yeah. So
Where
like, how was your experience? Yeah, like how was
HBCU
your
thrive.
experience being a believer on an HBCU campus?
So I will tell people that I have a very unique experience in that I was a commuter for all 4 years. And for those of you who don't know what a commuter is, it basically means I don't live on campus or didn't live on campus because I actually live like 15 minutes away. But in that, I planned on living on campus except for COVID hit for my freshman and sophomore year, and then junior year as well. So like my second semester, my freshman year until my second semester junior year, I was not even able to go on campus, or like it didn't make sense for me to go on campus because all of our classes were online. But in that, I would definitely say that temptation is very real and very present regardless of the college. But I've heard that like HBCUs are just another level for sure. And I noticed that like I had situations is that I didn't experience in a private school. So I went to a private school where the demographic was primarily white people, and then I go to an HBCU where the demographic is primarily black people. So in the space that I was in high school, I didn't really have to struggle with girls like coming at me or being attracted towards me because I guess I wasn't their preference. But when I got to college, that was something that happened a lot. So understanding how to navigate boundaries, understanding how to operate as an adult, because you can choose to go to class, you can choose not to go to class, you can handle yourself and conduct yourself in certain ways where you have a lot more responsibility, was a very developmental phase for me. So going to college, going to an HBCU was a great experience for me only because I just know that I grew a lot as a person despite not living on campus. But I will admit there's a lot of different things that I didn't experience because I didn't live on campus.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah, it's an interesting experience to say
Yeah,
the
it's very
least.
different.
mhm.
But
How's yours
well,
been
I
so
graduate
far?
next Friday, so it's coming to an end. Thank you. It's coming to an end.
Congratulations.
But Taja
Yeah.
graduated
Last year.
last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel
Okay.
like so for me, like you, well, we didn't go to a private high school, but it was predominantly white. It was just like a mix
Yeah, it
of
was a mixture
Mm-hmm.
a
of
mixture of
a lot of
cultures.
different cultures.
Yeah. But whenever I did come to
Gotcha.
like just being on that campus, being in that atmosphere, it was like a culture shock in a way. Because it was like, wow, there are
Right.
different kind of black people, okay? Like this is interesting.
Yeah.
But like my
Most
freshman
definitely.
year, it was like a major shift in as far as like friendships, meeting new people. But I did kind of drift away from God. It was like a whole like I'm just focused on school, and God kind of just got put on the back burner. But around my sophomore year, I
Yeah.
found out about a organization called the Impact Movement, and it's just a faith-based organization
Mm.
that helps students grow deeper in their faith. Well, the mission is for them to become disciples of Jesus Christ who integrate their faith into every aspect of life. So I ended up becoming a leader of
Fire.
that organization. So that kind of really helped. But yeah, it was
because it's different for sure.
different.
Like, and then like you were mentioning like about the temptation, like the temptation is strong. Like it's like either you're gonna do what you know is right, or you're just gonna kind of like
drift.
just drift
And I
away.
just kind of drifted. But
Hmm.
God got me back on track.
It's usually pretty slow too. Like I noticed like in situations that I didn't handle the way that I should have, it always started off like super slow just because like I noticed the enemy he kind of comes that way. Usually it's like if somebody offers you drugs, you're saying no, but if someone offers you a gateway drug or something that might be like an edible or something like that, like because I noticed there were people literally selling edibles on campus. I'm like, what are we doing here? This is, and it was like just things I never
Yes.
would have experienced before. And so like I had women that would like come up to me and approach me. I had guys come up to me and approach me, hitting on me. Like these are all things I just was not expecting. And so I was like, man. But I think that one thing that my brother told me that really encouraged me, he's like, whenever he went to college, he made the decision that he was going to follow God no matter what. And I think a lot of people don't really understand the gravity of that coming into college because it's like, oh yeah, I follow God, but they don't understand like these are just situations that you're not accustomed to. And so having that mindset going in can help you really be like, okay, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. Or this is how I'm going to respond in this type of situation. So
Right.
I definitely resonate with that. Like the
Yeah.
temptation was crazy.
But yeah, my time is coming to an end. Excited for that.
But like, how did you find yourself? I guess like sharing like Christian rap or music with like people that you would like meet kind of like on campus. Well, you say you did commute, but like if you met somebody like while you were on campus, was it like easy for you to like let them know, like I don't know, like listen to this music, or maybe like if you went to a party, you were like, you should check this out or something like that. Maybe like any instances like
Oh
that.
yeah.
Um, I think that like the way that I carried myself spoke a lot. So there's a lot. I'm just not a big proponent of just throwing Jesus in everybody's face in a way that makes it like super Bible thumper type. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to go out your way to like openly be like, oh, I don't listen to this kind of music.
Right.
Because then at that point, it's like, okay, you're weird. I don't even want to like just develop a relationship with people, and then like from there, I'd be like, oh, this song is hard. You should check it out. They'd be like, oh, where? Who is this? I'd be like, oh, this is my bro. And then they listen to it and they're like, this is hard. Let me go listen to more, bro. Like I tell people all the time, like if the music is good, they're not gonna care if it's Christian or
Right.
not. You don't even have to market it as Christian. Be like, yo, check out this song. Boom, they listen to it. Oh, this hard. Now they got a Christian song in their playlist and they didn't even realize. And then they start listening to the lyrics and they're like, oh, this is a Christian song. And so I think that we can do ourselves a disservice by just outright just being overly, oh, I'm Christian, I do X, Y, and Z, rather than let me be an example. You know what I'm saying? So like for partying, I only went to one college party my senior year. And that's because my friend, I was like out on campus and we was like homecoming week. And then she was like, oh, they got this thing going on campus. You should pop out. So I was like, for sure. But other than that, like people would invite me to places. They'd be like, oh, what you doing? I'm like, oh, I can't go. I've got Bible study going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, or I just partying is not my scene. So like if you carry yourself in the way of a believer, people start understanding like, oh, he actually lives this, rather than saying, oh, I'm a Christian, and then they see you at a party like, oh, you're a Christian, what are you doing here? And so that's a whole other conversation itself. But that's kind of the way that I carried myself. You know, like I didn't just throw it in everybody's face that like I do this and I only do this. I just carried myself that
Gotcha.
way.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like you mentioned too, a lot of times we kind of get caught up in, I guess, wanting people to, what is the word? It's like you shouldn't have to like just always throw it out there. It should just be how like the way that you live, the way you carry yourself. It shouldn't be like, oh, I have to say like I'm a Christian. Oh, I don't do that or I don't listen to that. It's like no, just like by the way that you live, how you carry yourself, that should speak volumes enough. And I feel like I've learned that like a lot growing
Mm-hmm.
up. Like, well, even in college, just like certain things, I just decided like I'm good on it. Like I don't do it. Even like my friends, they'll be like, hey, you're not coming to this. I'm like, nah, I'm good. And like they'll kind of ask, like, like why don't you do this or why? And then we kind of get into the conversation. But like I never wanted it to be like, oh, I'm a Christian, so I don't go out. Like, no. I'm not even trying to,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because that kind of makes them feel like, oh, you're better than me. Oh, you're a Christian, so you think that. And I listen, no.
Right.
It's just I just choose not to. And then like it kind of opens the door to the conversations, like you mentioned. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I was gonna say that why question allows you to explain the
Right.
reasons why, rather than just throwing it out there in their face. I think that when people are actually looking to understand, and then you're like, oh well, because of what I believe, then it's an opportunity to share the gospel there. Because some people might say, oh, you're a Christian, that makes sense, or some people might say, oh, you're a Christian, tell me more about why you feel like this is wrong, kind of thing. So that's definitely something that I would encourage other people to
Right.
do.
So do you feel like with you being like a big influencer, yeah, I mean, when you say creative, but do you feel like being in this space where people kind of look to you for guidance? They look at your life and they're like, okay, I kind of want to live like John, even though it's kind of like comparison, but people do, they can see you and get inspired. Do you feel like,
Hmm.
I don't want to word this question. Like, do you feel like you being in this space or kind of like having your platform, does it carry a lot of weight? And like, how do you deal with it?
For sure. For one, I don't even consider myself big. Um, but like that's something that even I struggle with, just because like I have to understand the gravity of. I think I'll probably hit 130,000 followers soon. So we'll just say 130,000 followers on TikTok. Like my homie was like, bro, look at an arena full of 130,000 people and like understand that's what you're overseeing right now. And so I had a tough conversation with my mom just because of some things that I was going through personally, spiritually, and she was like, "Look, you got to lock in. Like, you got to understand that the way that you carry yourself is not only a reflection of yourself, but the others that are around you and of the king. So you have to make sure that you navigate that well. Like, as a leader, we're called to live above reproach. So there's certain things that I can't get away with that if I didn't have a platform, I could get away with. But because I have a platform, yes, it's pressure. So I have to really be intentional on word choice. I have to really be intentional on the type of things that I'm even talking about, only because people feel like their opinion matters. And I hate to say that it doesn't, but the way I started like understanding it is if I can weigh people's opinions that are, in my close circle, then it can help me understand how I'm supposed to really live and navigate. Because you're going to always need accountability. You're going to need people to watch your six. I'm not going to do everything right. And so I need people who are in my corner who are saying, hey, you didn't step the right way as a leader here. Like I get where you're coming from, but that's not how a leader should operate. And so it's definitely a lot of pressure, but as long as you have a good community and a lot of people in your ear who can uplift you whenever you're getting hate, then it's really going to keep you on the right track. For example, the code for getting a lot of hate, but because I have six other guys on the team with me and I have a community around me who supports what I'm doing, I'm able to recognize this is a work that is actually going forth within my community for the kingdom. So like all the outside chatter that will come, especially in the Christian space, I think that being a Christian influencer is probably the hardest type of influencing that you could do, only because not only do you have to handle hate, but it's hate from a spiritual perspective. Now I'm questioning if I'm saved. Now I'm questioning if what I believe is truth or a lie. Like it can be very strenuous mentally. So yeah, I would definitely say there's a lot of pressure, but having a community around you is how I really navigate through that.
Gotcha.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
major.
community is big for us too. Like that's why we kind of host like events like the meetup, so people can kind of connect with other people who
Mm-hmm.
are like minded, and they don't do this walk alone because you really cannot do this alone. Like, yeah, yeah. And I like how
Facts.
you mentioned like the pressure with it, but like also having people to hold you accountable. But even the fact that like when you do things like what's the song people were singing? It's like it's a problem when I do it, but when they do it or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? What is that sound? I'm
Yeah, I
like,
know what you're talking
when
about.
I do it,
Yeah,
God, it's like the world is coming to an end. But when they do it, it's cool. Like,
right.
man, this is hard. It's really hard. But I wouldn't live any other way. So I wouldn't live any other way.
That's so
Yeah.
true.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. But how like whenever I guess whenever you like have those thoughts of like it's just like a lot of weight being put on you, how do you like I guess navigate like finding like a way out of that mental space? Maybe like somebody may be going through that right now that's like trying to do like social media content and they just feel like everybody is just like bashing them just for sharing the gospel. How do you kind of I guess would encourage them to break out of that negative space?
I think a big thing that God has really just put on my heart lately is the verse in James where it talks about be slow to speak and quick to listen, and really always taking time to reflect and evaluate, have I missed it here first? At the same time, there's a verse in Titus 3 where it talks about not arguing and not quarreling with people. So now I'll post a video. and I'll be slow to speak, quick to listen, see if what somebody says is actually true before I decide should I reply to this comment, should I make a video in response to this, or like I just take my time with things because at that point I can really reflect and not be emotional about things, and that way it kind of like removes that feeling of negativity because it's like sometimes I don't even have to pay attention to it. If somebody's always like, I just recently got my first hater like religiously commenting on videos bashing me, and every time I want to like respond, but I'm like, okay, I don't have to pay it any mind. I can just look at it as, oh, this is engagement for my video. You're boosting my video. That's how I look at it. It's like a switch in perspective. But if you're struggling with like social media, always remember you can ignore it, you can take a break. Like the first thing I'll do if I'm struggling mentally, if I'm going through like a depressive state, if I'm feeling like my content's not what I want it to be, or like my content is just really eating at me, I'll take a break. Because ultimately it's like, what am I in this for? Am I in it to promote myself? Am I in it to promote God? And if my relationship with God is not in alignment, then I'm gonna be off in general. But always remember, like, you don't have to respond to every comment. You don't have to pay attention to every comment, and just go from there. Truthfully, because you're never gonna say something right within every video, especially in the church space when people believe different things, different denominational beliefs, different perspectives and like understandings on scripture. And so when I started understanding that, I was like, I can't please everybody, so I shouldn't try to please everybody. So
That's super good.
What is like one of the biggest lessons you feel like you've learned this year?
so many lessons I've learned this year. So it's really hard to pick the biggest, but I definitely would probably say that like my ability to communicate and like my emotional maturity really took like it was there's a lot of situations that I just went through with my family or within relationships that I had, friends that I've had, romantic interests that I've had that like really helped me understand like, okay, let me learn how to communicate my emotional state. Let me understand how I'm actually feeling. Let me understand how to be a better person when these tense situations arise. I think that a lot of Christians, Michael Todd said it like this. It was so great. He said, we have our spirit, soul, and body. A lot of Christians love to develop the body and the spirit, but they never pay attention to their soul, which is your mind, your will, and emotions. And he was saying, like, whenever you see a lot of big leaders fall out, it's because their spirit was developed and their body was developed, but their soul wasn't. That's why you see so many people experience burnout too, because emotionally there's a disconnect. They're chemically imbalanced. And so understanding that balance of like, let me run and pray to God about certain situations, but also let me go to therapy if I need to. Let me talk to somebody that I know is going to help me like from a soulish standpoint. And so I think there's a lot of development in my soul this year that's really helped me grow as a person because that way I'm able to better communicate more effectively where I'm coming from, my perspective. Like I think that understanding that I'm not right about everything or understanding like my perspective is not the only perspective about everything has really helped me grow in communication. Like, hey, this is why I feel this way. This is what happened. This is what happened. But I understand that it might look different from this way. Can I get an understanding from your perspective? Then I'm better able to actually judge the situation. Then I'm better able to see like, okay, this is something that I still want to continue to engage in, or this is something that I'm really cool off of.
Got you.
That's big. I That's crazy because this year I would say I've had to learn how to just be more flexible and adapt. And it's made me kind of look at things from different perspectives because I kind of get stuck in the mindset of like if it's this way to do it, that's the only way that it needs to be done. And if I say it this way, this is the way that I see it, and
Mm-hmm.
that's like you said, that's the right way. And I feel like I've been learning how to like change my mindset and look at different perspectives. And it really has changed
Mm-hmm.
my whole outlook on life, my whole outlook on my faith. Like, yeah, it's been a major shift too. So yeah, I can relate to what you're saying. And even yeah, like even with my relationship with God, just the whole idea of intimacy with him, this is kind of going left. I'm sorry, y'all. But the whole
No, you're
idea of
good.
just like intimacy with God. And I kind of read something recently where it talked about being used by God is the lowest level of intimacy with him. Because for me, for a long time, I felt like I had
Mm-hmm.
to do so much to like please God. And it's like now just being his, like knowing that I'm his, it's like a major perspective change. I'm just like, what? I thought I had to be doing things all the time, but it's like, no, just be his, be like being reminded that I am his and just being in his presence has been like a major shift for me. So yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good. I would say that performative Christianity, and I just made a video about it too, and it's just so easy to get caught up in that whenever you start like in ministry or you start becoming a social media creator that's in a Christian space. It's like, okay, am I really genuinely living this lifestyle because this is what I believe, or am I living this lifestyle because you know, at first I started off genuine, but now it's become routine.
Mhm.
And I think that like we have to remind ourselves to break out of routine, and we have to remind ourselves to not let this just be something that we do because this is what we've been doing for the past couple of years, couple months, whatever. Because you can always start off good, but it talks about it in Galatians. I think it's chapter 5, where it talks about you can't start something off in the spirit and carry it out in the flesh. Like your videos, your content is not going to be the same if you're going through it in a routine, if you haven't spent time in the Word. Because what can happen is we can spend so much time in the Word initially that it's still in there, or God, He can still gift you with that ability to create content. It's still in there. And the Bible says that the gifts are without reproach. So God can use you to develop other people while you yourself are not being developed. And that's one of the craziest things where I've actually been in, where it's like I'm able to preach a word, but I myself am not in the word. But it's just because it's in me. And so like that's how that verse comes about where it says, Lord, then we prophesy in your name, then we cast out demons in your name. It's like, yes, you did all this great work for me, but you never had a relationship with me that entire time. But I gifted you with that. So I needed you to reach other people with that gift, but you yourself were not being reached by me. And that's a crazy thing that I think God's really been showing me a lot lately too, is like, don't take advantage of the gift that I gave you. Like I know that I've gifted you with teaching, John. So make sure that you're in the Word so that you can continue to accurately teach, so that you can continually be authentic in what you make. So
That's good.
I definitely get what you're saying there.
Oh my goodness, that was good.
I'm trying to process. Okay.
Yes.
So this has been a great conversation. But I wanted to talk about your brand a little bit too. Can you just kind of tell us the background of it? Like even the name. Yeah.
Okay, that's something that's really grown too. Like I think that the cool thing about like following somebody in their spiritual journey is like you can really see where they're growing in their understanding. Like I don't know if you guys know Young Don the Sauce God, but he's been doing his like faith journey over the past year and a half or like 2 years on YouTube, and you just kind of see him grow and develop. So like this brand is something that's grown and developed with me. Originally, it started off with the understanding that like we are sinners originally, but now we're called saints once we're in the body of Christ. And to an extent, I still agree with that. So my inspiration verse comes from Ephesians 2:19, where it talks about like once you accept Christ, you become citizens with the saints in heaven. So I was like, I want us to focus on that identity of like the new creature mindset where we're no longer sinners. But now I'm in the place where I'm understanding that like there's a fight with the flesh daily, and you have to put to death your sin nature. So now it's kind of like taking ownership in the fact that there are going to be certain sin struggles that we have to continually fight and battle, and it's a part of our nature as humans, but we're still saints. So it's still like we're taking our identity in the fact of what God calls us in the Bible, but also understanding like we still have a sin nature that we have to put to death. And like the difference in that for me is like initially I was just trying to be ignorant and like ignore the fact that we have this sin struggle. Like, oh, we don't have to fight sin the way like I don't know, like my perspective on sin and our sin nature was just really different. But I started understanding we can't appreciate God's grace until we understand the depravity of our sin. I don't know who said that, but I definitely got that from a sermon. And so the more you understand what Christ has forgiven you of, the more you can appreciate his sacrifice for you. And so it'd be a disservice to be like, oh, like, yeah, I repented of all my sin and I don't really struggle with sin the same way. It's like, no, this is something that we continually have to fight. And so Romans 7:25 is now where I take a lot of my inspiration from. And it talks about Paul where he's saying like, um, what's he say? He says, with my mind, I serve the spirit, but with my body, I serve this flesh. Who's going to free me from this? And it's like, thanks be to God, Jesus Christ. He's going to free me from this body of death. Something along the lines of that. But yeah, that's where my brand really just comes from. It's just understanding that, like, yeah, we got a sin nature, but we put it to death daily, and we are saints. So,
Yeah, I love
That's
that.
dope.
That is super dope. And I feel like it's a daily reminder, like you said, like you have to die to your flesh. And that is tough.
mhm.
Whew.
Right. And
But
to
you have
have that
to.
on like clothing is like that reminder every day. And then it's like going to be
Mhm.
a conversation starter. I'm sure probably already. It's like,
Every time.
that's so dope.
Yeah. I work in a ministry called Every Nation, and I wore this jacket one time, and one of the like the top leaders of the organization came and he's like sinner and saint. But from that point, like you're able to have a conversation. Somebody who's not a believer or somebody who is a believer is gonna look at that and be like, what? And then that point there, I'm like, oh, I'm able to preach the gospel. I'm able to have a conversation about what I believe in and why I'm wearing this. Like it's a cool piece to me, like from a design aspect, but it's also a really instrumental tool. And like once again, I don't advocate for just throwing Jesus on a shirt and be like, all right, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like you could. I think to me that as a designer, that's really lazy designs because so many people reach out to me and they're like, oh, can you help me spread the gospel? And then I see like the exact same T-shirt from like 40 different brands. It's a cross. It's like Jesus on there and like a verse. But for me, because it's personal and I believe like I prayed for this, like I really like went in with God, and so like I came up with this logo and I came up with this brand. I feel like to me it's a lot easier to have that authentic conversation and people see it as something that's striking. So I definitely have a lot of pride in what I've produced, and I'm really thankful that like God really gave me the inspiration for it.
Yes, you should. That is awesome.
Yes. Well, this has been a great conversation, John. We really appreciate you for coming on the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. That's great.
So can you like plug yourself, your Instagram, YouTube, all the things?
Okay. So my name on Instagram is svint.jon. It's St. John, but somebody wanted to gatekeep my account, so I couldn't spell it the right way. So I kind of just took that and ran with it for Instagram and TikTok. And then in my YouTube, it's called 𝐻𝐸_Show, all one word. For some reason, it doesn't pop up if you put spaces in it. So it's 𝐻𝐸_Show, but Saint is spelled normally. I should probably change that, low key. But yeah, those are the main socials that I'm on right now. We have the Cove, which is an Instagram account that just promotes what's going on within our Christian nightclub. I do have a podcast that I haven't done in months, but we're talking about starting that back up too, called I Found a Friend podcast. So if you guys are looking for more stuff to listen to there's that. But yeah,
Oh,
those are my socials.
Alrighty.
well, we appreciate you again.
Yes. Oh, and to end this off, can you
Thanks for
like
having me
tell
once again.
tell us like your favorite rapper right now? Like plug somebody. Yeah.
Favorite rapper right now? That's hard. That's so tough. Who do I listen to a lot of? See, I'm at the point where I listen to so many different type of artists that like rap has been on the back burner lately.
Okay.
So I've been listening to a lot of Cleo Sol lately.
Okay.
So I'm gonna throw that out there. And 𝐻𝐸. If y'all don't know 𝐻𝐸, tap into 𝐻𝐸. She's
Wait.
very tough. And then
What's
Melodic
gonna be
Geese just dropped that
her?
Rain joint. That song's hard. 𝐩𝐸 dropped a great project, and Kijan Boone. I think those two rappers are probably like the top two of my rotation a lot lately. I've been listening to a lot of
Yeah.
Kijan. I can't lie.
Dope, dope, dope.
Yes.
Well, we're looking forward to whatever you have next. We're definitely supporting. So yeah.
Thank you
Well, you
so
guys
much.
have heard God's word, so act accordingly.
Peace and blessings.
Bye, John. Thank you so much again.
Peace.